My fingernails dug crescents into my palms as I stared at the two massive rolling suitcases blocking our front hallway. The scent of Sandra's cloying perfume hung in the air, the same one that had given me migraines for 3 consecutive Sundays. A coat I didn't recognize was already draped across my carefully chosen entryway bench, and the distinct sound of Glenn's sports commentary blared from my living room at a volume that made the picture frames vibrate. "Hope you don't mind," Sandra said, appearing from the kitchen wearing my apron, her smile never reaching her eyes. "We thought we'd stay a few nights. Glenn's back is acting up again, and it's just easier not to drive back and forth." I stood frozen, keys still clutched in my hand, grocery bags growing heavy on my arm. The sensation of something precious being stripped away washed over me, not suddenly but like a tide that had been rising for months and had finally reached my neck. "A few nights?" I managed, my voice unnaturally high. "Just until Wednesday," Sandra said with a dismissive wave. Nolan said it was totally fine. My name is Olivia. I'm 34 and a UX designer. This is the story of how I reclaimed my sanctuary after it was stolen, one small intrusion at a time. I'd spent 3 years in a cramped apartment with a fold-out desk in the corner of our bedroom, working through deadlines while balancing household chores. This house, with its sun-drenched breakfast nook, my dedicated office space, and the small yoga room I'd planned was supposed to be my reward, our sanctuary. Nolan had been proud when we moved in. He should have been. His construction firm built it, and he'd obsessed over every detail as if crafting a masterpiece. The first time his parents visited was manageable. His father made stiff comments about our flashy quartz counters, and his mother critiqued my lighting choices as if she were a professional designer. But I let it slide. I figured they'd visit occasionally, admire our progress, and leave us in peace. Then it became every Sunday. "Oh, we were just in the area. It's easier if we eat here. Less cleanup for us." They never asked. They simply arrived, commandeered our space, and expected to be served. Glenn would blast sports on our television at deafening volumes. Sandra would hover in the kitchen, questioning every ingredient I used. "You don't use garlic powder?" she once asked, blinking at me as if I'd admitted to not using soap. I'd laugh politely and explain my preference for fresh garlic. She'd tilt her head as if my choice was suspicious. Nolan would just smile, kiss her cheek, and tell her she looked great. He never once acknowledged that I was cooking for 5 instead of 2, hosting, cleaning, and trying to prepare for Monday meetings. The guest room that I'd hoped to use as a yoga space was gradually morphing into their nap station. "Your couch hurts Glenn's back," Sandra explained after their 3rd Sunday nap. "The guest bed is better for his posture." I swallowed my frustration. What was I supposed to say? Stop visiting your son? It felt petty. But something was growing in my chest, a tight, quiet resentment that made me dread the sound of tires in our driveway. One night after they left, I gently told Nolan, maybe next weekend we could have a quiet one, just us. He looked up from his phone, genuinely confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, it's been nonstop. I'd love a Sunday without commentary on my cooking techniques." He laughed. "They mean well, Liv. Come on. You're overthinking it." I was always overthinking it. That was my role, the considerate one, the accommodating one. So I tried a different approach the following week while we were making dinner. I was slicing bell peppers when I casually mentioned, "Hey, I was thinking maybe my parents could come stay one night next month, just a weekend visit. They haven't seen the house yet." He froze. "Your parents overnight?" "Just one night," I assured him. "Maybe we could cook something together. It would be low-key." He made a face like I'd suggested a tax audit. "Liv, no offense, but your dad makes me feel like I'm at a job interview, and your mom. I'd have to be on, you know?" I blinked. "Be on?" "Yeah, like polite, watching what I say, making conversation." I dropped the knife a little too hard on the cutting board. "You mean being a decent human being?" "Don't twist it," he said, defensive. "I'm just saying I can't relax around them. They're not as easygoing as my parents." That was the moment I realized my comfort came second in his mind, or maybe it didn't register at all. "You do realize," I said, measuring each word, "that I've been hosting your parents every week, cooking for them, cleaning up after them, listening to your mom lecture me about proper towel folding, and you think you're the one who has to be on for one night?" He didn't answer. He just shrugged and went back to stirring the pot. When I came home from errands and found those suitcases in the hallway, something inside me shifted. I found Nolan in the kitchen, acting as if nothing was wrong. "It's just a couple days," he said, not looking up from his phone. "You know how they are. Besides, it's not a big deal." Not a big deal. My heart pounded in my chest as I climbed the stairs to the guest room. The bed was already unmade. Sandra's silk robe was draped over the chair. Glenn's slippers sat by the door as if he'd lived here for years. I stood in the doorway of the room that had once felt like mine in some small, symbolic way, the space where I'd hung eucalyptus bundles and dreamed of quiet mornings with meditation. Now it smelled like menthol cream and cheap aftershave. At dinner that night, Sandra asked if I'd mind switching laundry detergents. "The lavender one you use makes Glenn's skin itch," she explained, as Glenn added, "and the water pressure in the upstairs shower is a bit rough. Any way to fix that?" I smiled thinly. "Sure, I'll add it to my list." I looked across the table at Nolan, who was eating as if nothing had changed. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan. Their footsteps echoed down the hallway. My head buzzed with unspoken words. My muscles ached from holding in every reaction I wasn't permitted to express. Nolan snored softly beside me. Between midnight and 2 a.m., I realized I had two choices: continue being the doormat in designer sweatpants or take back control of my life. I turned over, pulled my phone from the nightstand, and texted just one person. "Rebecca, do you still have that guest room?" The reply came instantly. "Always." I didn't have a fully formed plan yet, but something had shifted. I wasn't angry, not yet, but I was done being invisible. The next morning, I made Nolan's coffee exactly how he liked it. Extra hot with a splash of oat milk, and left it on the counter without a word. He didn't notice I hadn't made one for myself. Sandra was already in the kitchen wearing my robe. "Olivia, do you have any chamomile tea that isn't so flowery? My stomach's a bit off." I silently opened a cabinet, handed her what she wanted, and walked away without smiling. Glenn shuffled in minutes later, yawning loudly, and turned on the TV. Volume 39. I'd never felt like a stranger in my own home before, but now my movements were smaller, quieter, as if I were the visitor hoping not to disturb. By Tuesday night, Nolan casually mentioned they'd stay through the weekend. Just easier since they're already here. No point in making them pack up twice. I stared at him across the bathroom sink. "They've been here 5 days already." "It's temporary," he said, avoiding my eyes. That night, I needed to finish a UX redesign pitch from the upstairs office, now filled with Sandra's craft supplies and Glenn's spare golf clubs. I worked cross-legged from the corner of our bed while Sandra folded laundry next to me, my files scattered on the floor. Glenn opened the door without knocking to ask where the HDMI cable was. I didn't look up. "Try the drawer in the TV stand." After he left, Sandra asked, "Do you always work this late?" I nodded, jaw tight. "It's quieter at night." "You should really think about boundaries," she said, fluffing a towel. "Work-life balance matters." That was when I nearly laughed out loud. The next day, while Nolan and his parents went to a late brunch without inviting me, I called Rebecca. "You sound like someone who's 5 seconds from torching a throw pillow," she said. "I'm close. Come stay here." "It's not that simple." Rebecca hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Okay, then make it complicated. Be strategic. You know that's your thing." "Strategic how?" She laid out a plan. It was absurd and perfect. "Remember that moving company your brother works for?" she asked. "I think we could arrange something special for your in-laws." I smiled for the first time in days. "I'll make a call." That night, I told Nolan that my aunt in Portland had slipped and broken her wrist, that she had no one nearby, and that I needed to go help for a few days. He barely looked up from his phone. "Are you driving or flying?" "Driving. It's faster." He shrugged. "Drive safe." Sandra and Glenn were more interested in whether I'd pre-made any meals before leaving. "We don't want to mess up your kitchen system," Sandra said with a wink. I packed one small bag. No suitcases, no dramatics. Before I left, I placed a single envelope on my nightstand. Inside was a short handwritten note. "I'll be gone for a while. If you need space, now you have it. Olivia." I didn't feel guilty. Rebecca met me at her door with a bottle of wine and a look that said, "Finally." Her apartment wasn't big, but it was warm and quiet. I set up my laptop on her guest table, lit a candle, and exhaled for the first time in weeks. Back at the house, my absence confused Nolan. He called the next morning. I let it go to voicemail, then texted, "Missed the last train home. I'll stay another day." Then another, then another. On the 5th day, according to my plan, a moving truck pulled into our driveway. Sandra saw it first through the living room window. "Oh, they must be delivering something for Olivia." 2 movers stepped out and began hauling boxes labeled Radford and Master Bedroom. Sandra opened the front door, confused. "Excuse me, what is this?" One of the movers handed her a clipboard. "Sunrise relocation, ma'am. We have a work order to move in furniture. Address matches. You're the Radfords?" Glenn stepped in. "Yes, that's us." The movers nodded and started bringing in furniture. A full-size mattress, dressers, a recliner chair, boxes of cookware. Glenn blinked. "This must be a mistake." The mover pointed at the manifest. "Says here, delivery is for Glenn and Sandra Radford, new residents, 912 Silver Hill Lane." Sandra's mouth opened, then closed. By the time Nolan came home, the guest room had been rearranged, the closets filled with their clothing, and the label on the mailbox had a small sticker underneath our names, and parents. He walked in, dropped his keys, and said, "What the hell is going on?" Sandra looked delighted. "Isn't this great? Olivia said we could have this space while she's away." "We figured since you're on your own for now," Glenn added. "She even arranged the movers. Thoughtful, huh?" Nolan stared at the envelope on the nightstand. The same one I'd left. He opened it again as if it might have changed. It hadn't. Rebecca's brother, the one who owned the moving company, had executed the plan perfectly. He told me later that Sandra and Glenn didn't even question it once they saw their names on the work order. He tried calling me. No answer. He sent a message. "Olivia, come on, we need to talk." I replied 3 hours later. "Can't talk. You're busy hosting. Hope it's going well." At Rebecca's, I made dinner in peace. I watched a movie on the couch. I slept until 9 without being awakened by a toilet flush down the hall. The next morning, Rebecca's neighbor, who worked at the local real estate office, texted me updates about what was happening at the house based on what Sandra had told her. My plan was working perfectly. The first week without me, Nolan tried to hold it together. He texted, "Got it under control, you'll see." 2 days later, he sent a photo of a half-cooked lasagna with the comment, "Chef Nolan in action." But by the second week, the messages changed. "Do you know where the vacuum bags are?" "The washer smells weird. Is that normal?" "Your mom's roast chicken recipe. Where is it?" I didn't respond. Rebecca saw me reading the messages and said, "Amazing how fast it's not a big deal turns into, 'Help me, I'm drowning.'" Meanwhile, Sandra called every other day. I still had her number saved from all those Sunday dinner invitations. I finally picked up once. "Olivia, sweetheart, are you planning to come back anytime soon?" "Why? You've got the whole house." "Well, it's just Glenn and I were under the impression this was temporary." "So was I." She paused. "Nolan seems stressed. He misses you." I didn't answer. What I didn't say was that Nolan was finally experiencing everything I had endured for months. The noise, the demands, the lack of privacy, the endless questions. He texted again 3 days later. "I'm sorry, this is hard. I didn't realize how much you were juggling." But then added, "Still, they're my parents. I can't kick them out." That line said everything. So I made a decision. I emailed him a digital copy of a separation agreement drafted with the help of Rebecca's lawyer friend. Not divorce, not yet, but a clean line in the sand. I had Rebecca scan and email it to both Nolan's personal and work emails to ensure he received it. The house. I had put down most of the down payment. The mortgage was in both our names, but the land title was under mine alone. Nolan had insisted I didn't need to be on everything, that it was all ours anyway. Now that worked in my favor. Our separation agreement had been drafted with clear terms about the property, exactly for this situation. He called the next morning, panicked. "Olivia, what is this?" "A boundary in writing." "You're really doing this over a couple of weekends?" "It's never just a couple of weekends, and you know it." He didn't say anything for a long time then. "I can't afford this place on my own." "I know." He let out a shaky breath. "Are you asking me to move out?" "No, I'm just saying if they're staying, I'm not." He tried for 2 more weeks. He tried to get his mom to cook. She refused, asked his dad to help fix the broken dishwasher. He ignored it. Sandra didn't do laundry, claiming she didn't want to touch Olivia's things. Glenn piled takeout containers in the sink and left them there. Nolan started eating out. First fast food, then microwave dinners. He stopped opening my messages. Then came the final straw. He overdrew our joint account. I froze the card. When he called in a fury, I picked up calmly. "You're not entitled to funds I'm not using. We're separated." "You froze the account." "I moved my direct deposit. You should do the same." He cursed under his breath. Then he said it. The thing I knew was coming. "Maybe we should sell the house." "That's up to you," I said. "But if you do, I get first right of refusal. It's in the paperwork." "So what? You want it back now?" "No, I just want the option. You've already filled it with your chosen residence." He hung up. A week later, I got a notification that the house was listed online. I had set up alerts for our address on several real estate sites while staying at Rebecca's, knowing this day might come. I clicked the link. Photos showed the living room cluttered with mismatched chairs, old magazines, and Glenn's foot massager. The once pristine kitchen had sticky notes taped to every drawer labeled "Do Not Touch." In one shot, you could see a pile of laundry on the guest bed. It was heartbreaking and hilarious. Rebecca leaned over my shoulder. "That looks like a Craigslist bachelor flat with parental chaperones." And to think I used to light candles in that bathroom. Eventually, he sold it below market value. The real estate agent's comment said, "Motivated seller, flexible timeline, minor repairs needed." The sale closed in less than a month, a record for our neighborhood. I didn't buy it back. I didn't need to. I'd already found a new place, a small rental townhouse. Nothing fancy, but it had a balcony, a deep tub, and no one walking in uninvited. I worked, I slept, I saw my parents, I hosted brunches with friends. I didn't fold anyone else's laundry but my own. One morning, 6 months after I'd left the house, I bumped into a mutual friend at a cafe. She didn't recognize me at first, said I looked glowier. I asked, "How's Nolan?" She gave a small shrug. "Living with his parents for now, it's a lot." I nodded. It always was. Back at Rebecca's, where I was helping her pack for her own move, we toasted to peace. She looked at me and said, "Do you regret anything?" I thought for a moment. "I regret not leaving sooner." She smiled. "Want me to help you draft the divorce filing?" "Already done. The papers were signed last week and filed with the county. It's finally over." We clinked glasses. The house was gone. The weight was gone. I hadn't just left a building. I'd walked out of a pattern. And when Sandra called months later and left a message, "Could we meet for coffee?" "Just talk." I deleted it without listening to the rest. Sometimes peace looks like absence. Sometimes it sounds like silence. Sometimes it feels like waking up alone in your own home and breathing, really breathing. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.